Welcome to East Alabama Today, featuring topics, events, and interesting people from all over East Alabama. Hosted by Carl Brady. Now, let's get right to the show. Here's Carl Brady.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into East Alabama Today. Thanks for joining us on today's program. We'll get things started off with some contact information for the show so you know how to get in touch with us. If you have an idea for our program, we would love to hear from you. If you have things going on in your community like fairs, festivals, special events, things related to your church, your community, your neighborhood, a nonprofit organization, those kind of things. That's exactly what we're looking for, the kind of things we're looking to feature here on East Alabama Today. So if you have something going on in your community, always let me know about it. You never know, you might find yourself being invited to be a guest here on the show to talk about that special event that you're a part of. We also want to know about the interesting people who live in your community. Maybe you know someone who's a writer, an artist, or a musician. Maybe they have an odd or an interesting hobby and you think they would be a great guest for the program. That's who we're looking for, so send me information about those folks as well. And do it at cbrady@tv24.tv. That's the best way to get in touch with me, is just directly through email, cbrady@tv24.tv. And remember, if you happen to miss an episode of the show and you'd like to go back and review some information, see an episode that you missed, it's very easy to do. Just go to our website, tv24.tv, click on the on-demand section, and then go down and look for East Alabama Today, and you'll find a whole series of East Alabama Today shows that you may have missed that you can watch at your convenience whenever you like on your computer. So, folks, stay around with us. We've got a big show coming up, and we'll get it started in just a moment. Hang out. Well, we welcome you back into East Alabama today, and talking today with Joy Ballenger, who is my guest. Joy, welcome to the program. Good to have you on. You've been on the show before in various capacities, but today we're going to talk about continue our discussion. We talked recently with the Council on Aging in Etowah County about elder abuse and taking care of our senior family members, our elder family members, and we're going to continue that discussion today. You work with Visiting Angels, which is a living assistance company. Right. So we'll talk about that. But you know, one of the things that toward the end of life, seniors and elders often need some assistance, and in this crazy busy world we live in, their kids and their grandkids can't necessarily spend 24 hours a day with them. They've got to work. Everybody's got to work and make a living. So at some point in time, sometimes a decision has to be made about bringing in an outside person or outside people to help with the care, especially if they want to spend their latter years at home and not go to a nursing home or an assisted living or things like that. So that's what we want to talk about today, is the importance of that, how it works, and how do you find good, safe, trustworthy people to come into a family member's home unsupervised, basically, and have the run of the place. So it should be an interesting discussion today. Right. Just start us off a little bit with some information about home care. Now, what you guys do is not home health. You are not nurses. You're not healthcare related. This is living assistance.
It is.
Talk about the difference between home health and living assistance, and even hospice, because people have a tendency to get the three confused.
They do. Well, we work right along beside those home health and hospice agencies if they are in the home. And a lot of times if people have been in the hospital, they do go home with some home care from a home health agency. But we are non-medical. So what our caregivers do are able to stay in the home, whether it is 3 hours, 5 hours, any combination of hours, and they are able to stay with the client, the loved one in their home. Or if they're living with a family member, they do light housekeeping, meal preparation. They can do medication reminders, make sure that they're taking their medications. Hygiene, helping with bathing assistance. If it's changing the bed linens, companionship. It can be any combination. If they are still able to get out and go, then maybe they don't need to drive any longer. But our caregivers can take them to their doctor's appointments. If it's to the beauty shop, if it's out to lunch. It's anything, any combination. If they are in our area and have an event that they want to go see at one of our cultural arts or the museum or anything, the library. So it is true companionship. Now, if they are bedbound or need to stay in the home and not really get out and about, then that's fine too. They're great companions for those individuals that just need to stay at home.
Right, and I have some personal experience with this with my grandparents before their death. We had to employ 24-hour sitters for 3 or 4 years to help with their care, and luckily we got some really, really good ones who became like members of the family.
They do.
But how do you find those good people? How do it really is a matter of trust. You're opening up the care of a loved one who can't care for themselves anymore, and you're opening up their home and just their whole lives to a stranger, basically, a lot of times coming in. What are some tips to finding the right people to help with that kind of care?
Well, I would suggest that they go through a reputable company. And I know, like you said, with your family, there are some great caregivers that do private duty sitting on their own. But the one thing about our service is that they are bonded. They are insured. They have, all of our caregivers have criminal background checks, which includes driving records, and they are drug tested. The other component to that is they've been in this field for years. Many of them have. It's a passion for them to be a caregiver. So that's one thing, is it's not a fly-by-night thing that I think I'll do this for a little bit, and then I'll go and do something else. We do have some young caregivers that maybe are in nursing school, or they're in school and have time. They need another job where they can have flexible hours. But a reputable company that does provide some background checks and to be bonded is is vital. It really is.
That is very important, and like you said, there are plenty of really good private caregivers out there. But if you don't already know somebody who can make some good references and referrals, it's really tough to know what you're getting into with some folks, and because there are a lot of people out there who are caregivers who are not trained, who don't have specific skill training for the job. So I'm losing my voice here. So you do have to be careful with who you're getting involved with. Right,
because there's fall risk. There could be, if they are in helping with bathing assistance, there's a technique to that, to helping someone get up out of the chair, into the shower. A lot of the homes now some are handicap ready, or they've made arrangements in their showers where it's just a little step over into the shower. But a lot of times it's not like that. So sometimes we have some clients that are able to still bathe or shower on their own, but they're afraid to do that without anyone being in the home.
Right.
If they are living with their children, and of course we work, and your parents are in your home, then there needs to be a caregiver there that would just be in the home to maybe oversee some of that, to be there in case anything did happen.
And personalities, you have to work on that as well, because you're talking about somebody who is in the home more than a family member at this point. They're there for several hours at a time. Many of them work 8, 10, 12-hour shifts. And they're there sitting and watching TV on the couch with your loved one in the same room, so they got to be compatible as to, you don't want a caregiver to come in that's going to take over the TV.
Yeah.
If Granddaddy couldn't watch the Braves game, he would have been upset.
Right.
So your caregiver has to be, compassion is a huge part of it, but you have to have a right personality to do a job like this.
And that's what we do. I go out and do the assessments with the clients when they have inquired, whether it is word of mouth, they've seen the advertisement on TV, however they have found out our contact information. And then I set up an appointment and go do an assessment and find out those likes and those dislikes. Not only the needs that they have, the combination of the hours, what would suit them, but then the personalities and whether it's somebody that, because that companion needs to be somebody they really want to be with,
Right.
you know. And that's the key. They can select. And I always have in mind who I would prefer, who I would think that would be a good fit for them. But the client and the family have an opportunity to interview and to meet that caregiver for the first time. And they're never unannounced. That's always an introduction that I do, is go in and that's another thing. And to stay in touch.
Yeah.
And do periodic drop-in visits, calls, make sure that the client's okay. We remember birthdays, and I had a client recently that just had cataract surgery. Of course, I called that afternoon the next day to make sure, and he was seeing so much better. He was all happy. He felt better.
Yeah.
So we check on him. I have another one that has a birthday this Sunday. I've already have in mind what I'm going to take her a little goodie by. So there is a lot of personal interaction. There really is.
Yeah. Well, we need to take a commercial break, so let's do that right now. When we come back, we'll talk more about assisted living, living assistance, and elder care as we continue with today's East Alabama Today. Welcome back into East Alabama Today. We're continuing our discussion that we've been having recently of elder care, caring for senior citizens in our community and in your family. And we're talking about living assistance type home care today, not home health, not hospice, but non-medical living assistants, people who come in and help with housekeeping and bathing and those kind of things. One of the advantages of going with a company that provides this is that you maybe have some dispute resolution options there.
Right.
If the patient, quote, is not happy with the caregiver, or the family's not happy with the caregiver, you can kind of mediate that and figure out what the problem is, and it makes, if you have an individual and you decide just to fire them and get rid of them, and they're not happy, you're not happy, with a company that's reputable and long-standing like you guys, then you have somebody there to mediate that process.
That's right.
Talk about that and how that's an advantage for the families.
Well, it is. And then also, in addition to that, is that if they are ever out, I always like to introduce 2 caregivers, if not more. Introduce those. Doesn't mean that they're changing daily or weekly. Right. I'm pretty much of a detailed, probably to a fault, of wanting to set a schedule and it be that way. Now, we are very flexible. There are flexible hours if need be, but as far as the caregiver, if it doesn't work out, then absolutely, for some reason, if there is a personality difference, it's like, well, mother really would rather this or that, or, if it's somebody that likes the environment to be quiet, or if it's someone that likes...
She talks too much, or she don't talk enough.
Yeah, right, and there is that.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the thing. There are some of the caregivers that may be a little bit more quiet and timid. And maybe mother or daddy that they're caring for want somebody that would interact with them. And that is good, because they really need that stimulation. If somebody is in the home and has been alone or is no longer to stay alone, they need that activity. A senior adult does, as much as they are able to have.
As much as they're able to, right? Well, and another issue too is, this kind of gets into training and other issues. Patients have different needs. You have some who are just getting old and can't care for themselves as well. And then you have folks who have dementia or Alzheimer's. So that takes a totally different kind of caregiver to be involved in that kind of care. So that gives the training that you guys receive and give to your caregivers, and in that dispute resolution, Alzheimer's patients have a tendency to start thinking that people are out to get them. They start thinking, you know, somebody stole my watch, somebody stole my glasses, and then they start blaming the caregiver or the family member who's closest to them. I know my grandmother would always complain about somebody stealing her watch even though it was on her arm.
Yeah.
And, you know, this she said, but this is not my watch.
Right.
Like, grandmother,
They don't recognize.
this is the watch you've been wearing for 20 years, but she didn't recognize that. So you have to learn how to deal with those kind of things, and it takes a really special caregiver to work with Alzheimer's patients.
It really does. And they can distract them off of the subject sometimes and be able to, you know, but our caregivers are very knowledgeable of those, some more than others, and that's the ones that we would put in the home with the dementia or the Alzheimer clients. But then also they are able to mediate themselves out of that situation if it is that they think that something is missing from the house. Now, you know, Miss So-and-so, I would never take anything, and to kind of distract them off the subject, and that usually works well as well.
What are you looking for as far as caregivers go? You guys have to, there's a huge demand for your services.
It really is.
And as the baby boomers continue to age and get into that age range of needing this assistance as they become senior citizens. You know, my mom and dad are baby boomers. My dad's 72, mom just turned 69. She probably won't be happy with me telling that on TV. But you know, as the baby boomer generation is turning in getting into that age range, then there's going to be more and more of a demand. What do you look for in caregivers? And as you recruit caregivers, what's the process of becoming a professional caregiver that's well-trained and part of an established organization like you guys?
Well, dependability is ultimate. That is, and to be on time. But as far as just someone, you know, we have run some ads for caregivers, and a lot of times these girls have more girls, naturally. But now there are some gentlemen that are caregivers, and they're great caregivers. I would like to have some men, because sometimes that man-to-man relationship, as far as especially if it's a hygiene and bathing, they're more comfortable with that. So I'd like
and too, if you have a patient who has a tendency to fall or is bedridden or something like that, and you've got to do a lot of physical exertion to move him around. You know, my granddad was a pretty big guy, and it took a lot to get him up, you know, from his chair to his wheelchair or to the bed. It would take 2 or 3 women sometimes to move him around.
That's right. I like to look at their experience. A lot of our caregivers are CNAs, which are certified nurse assistants. It's not a requirement, but a lot of them have been. They have either worked in that field in a nursing home for a long time. Maybe they don't want to, maybe their hours were not flexible enough. It could be that somebody has school children. Maybe they want to be working when their kids are in school and need to be off maybe at 3 o'clock. So see, that works out great. So sometimes it's things like that is desirable for the caregiver, and it's fine with us too, because sometimes people want to work 3rd shift, 2nd shift because of their family, whatever their family environment is that they need to work to suit their own schedules. But dependability, trustworthiness, of course, passion. It never ceases to amaze me to watch the caregivers with the clients. I was with one yesterday that we actually went to a doctor's appointment with a new client and his daughter, and made the introduction, because this will be a large component of the care that the caregiver will give with this gentleman, is to go take him to doctor's appointments. His daughter, he lives with his daughter and son-in-law. They work. So this will be a big help for him in not missing those appointments that he really needs to go to.
Right.
And on the way into the doctor's office, my caregiver stopped and spoke to a couple of people that were on the way in. It turned out that the man that we were just talking with was soon to be 99 years old.
Wow.
So it's really, the longevity of people is amazing. I have several 89 to 91 to 94, 97-year-old clients, and they're able to stay in the home. I think it's wonderful that they can stay in the environment that they're already comfortable with, because we know any of us that get a little disoriented if you move. you know, or have a
right.
change in environment. So I think that's the going thing now, is to be able to keep a loved one in the home. I have several married couples too that are still able to stay alone. 89 years old, still staying at home.
Yeah.
They're okay at night, but they just need someone to come in, help with breakfast, do some of the housekeeping, the medication reminders to make sure, they pamper them,
Yeah.
you know, do pedicures and manicures for the ladies and things like that. So it's really neat.
Let's talk about the money aspect of it. A lot of people have a tendency to think that some of this is maybe covered under insurance and those kind of things. Is the service you guys offer, the living assistance, is that covered under Medicare, Medicaid, insurance, or is that all a private pay thing?
It is a private pay. Now, our company with Visiting Angels, we can accept long-term care insurance. We review the policy and make sure that the parameters of the policy are for our guidelines of what we qualify for what they need. And then also, if a veteran or spouse qualifies for the aid and assist through the Veterans Administration, we can accept we use Veterans Home Care. So that's something that's been a big help to a lot of, if it's the veteran themselves and maybe they're widowed and
Right.
they're, you know, and how many men are able to do all of their laundry,
Yeah.
cooking, meal preparation, and maybe they have some medical issues. A lot of them have COPD. They just need some extra help in the home, and they qualify through the aid and assist.
Yeah, you have to jump through a lot of hoops with the VA to get that aid and assistance approved, but once you get it approved, it's worth
It is.
worth all the hoops you had to jump through to get
It
it.
is.
We need to take another quick break, so we'll do that and come back and wrap up in just a moment. Continue to hang out with us here on East Alabama Today. Welcome back for the final quick segment of East Alabama Today. We're with Joy Ballenger, and we're talking about living assistance care in the home. Not home health, not hospice, but living assistance care for seniors and elderly patients. One of the things, summer is travel season. People are traveling. They're going to visit family members who live out of town. And you have some good advice for people who may still be wondering, does my grandmother, does my mom or dad need that assistance yet? When you're on vacation and you're going to visit them, there's some things to look for that can give you some clues, right?
Right. Maybe some things if they by chance notice the mail. The mail has stacked up. A lot of times you find that they are not paying their bills on time. If the refrigerator, even in the refrigerator, is it stocked well? Is it not? Are they eating? If there's, sometimes you might notice some things with them physically, but all those can either be a health issue, a medical issue, or it could just be that there's some depression. Maybe they don't want, they're lonely. But there are some things to watch for like that. I would notice a lot of times the things that are dated in the refrigerator. Another thing, Carl, is are they dressing appropriately? If they're out of season, if they're not matching, which is not always something.
Not always,
that's
but
not always.
if their clothes are on backwards,
Yes,
that's something.
Yes. But if things are not matching anymore, it could just be their vision, or it could be their mental acuity. So there's a lot of things to watch for like that.
And if they've always kept a very nice, neat, clean home, but things are starting to stack up and pile up, and you can tell the home's not being cared for very well, that's an indication.
It is.
As well, that maybe it's time to start talking about some help, getting some help in.
Yes, and introduce that, in a gradual way. Our caregivers also are very accustomed to a little resistance.
Resistance, yes.
And they warm up to that. They really do. It never ever have I seen one that did not accept, and they really find that they do enjoy the company, the help, the company. That we have seen a 90-degree turnaround in someone's health that has improved. If it's because they're not eating, sometimes people, the elderly get to where either their taste changes, they're not hungry. It could be because they're lonely and they're not eating. I wish it would happen. Sometimes I don't have the problem with them, not lack of appetite, but they do. They really do. So the meals and being able to eat on time, but that's the thing that they can watch for when they do go back home or visit for holidays. It's just kind of just assess the situation and see if everything still seems to be as it has been.
Joy, thank you so much for being with
you.
us on the program.
My
And
pleasure.
folks, we want to thank you for joining us as well. You've been seeing Joy's contact information and website information throughout the show. So if you have a need for some living assistance or just some questions about it, feel free to contact Joy and Visiting Angels to talk about that. Thank you for joining us here on East Alabama Today. We'll see you next time.